Welcome to the High V.I.B.E show, Livin the High V.I.B.E life with me, your host, Elisa V, and together with my guests, experts in the art of living in a state of high vibration, we have got an amazing show for you today. My passion is to educate and inspire you to raise your frequency to a high vibrational state. Whether you're an awakened soul to the power of your own consciousness as a light being, or you're new to this spiritual path of expansion and growth, which is made possible through vibrating at a high level, you are in the right place. So stay here to experience fun, frequency upgrades now, so you can manifest all you want and help to raise the collective vibration of our wonderful world. Let's hit the restart button and high vibe it together. The High V.I.B.E show starts now. Today to the High V.I.B.E show. I'm your host, the Queen of Vibe, Elisa V, and you're in the right place if you're looking for ways to live a more fulfilling life and manifest your desires into your reality. Today, I'm so glad to have you here as we bring you our second episode in my 10-part series entitled Secrets to High Vibe Wellness, where you're going to learn some of the best kept secrets for embracing an empowered mindset and effective techniques to be a creator of well-being in all dimensions of your life. Activating high vibe frequency to wellness is our episode today, and we'll be discussing the secrets of how to activate our high vibrational power in a holistic way so we can thrive in all dimensions. I'm so thrilled to have two amazing women join me today on my show. Dr. Pat Baccili of The Dr. Pat Show and founder of the Transformation Talk Radio Network, and Dr. Roni. Dr. Roni is a naturopathic doctor. She has a PhD in natural health, a registered nurse, certified colon therapist, and certified hypnotherapist for over 25 years. She's also founder of the Martha's Vineyard Holistic Retreat and a New York Times bestselling author of 21 Pounds in 21 Days, the Martha's Vineyard Diet Detox, and 1 pound a day. She's been on national TV, print, and radio, The Larry King Show, The View, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Steve Harvey Morning Show, Wendy Williams, and so many more that I don't have time to mention. So welcome, ladies. Welcome to the High V.I.B.E show.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting. Dr. Pat, you and I are never going to stop.
You know, we're never going to stop. I don't think Elisa V knows that. You know, there were times in our journey of wellness where we thought we were going to be forced to stop because we spoke out about egregious things. And, you know, we now want to talk about how we move beyond the people that tried to stop us. And, you know, Lisa, you know this, when you're in a high vibration of wellness, healing, success, whatever that is, you're unstoppable.
That's right. That's right.
Completely.
Yes.
And, you know, part of like joining forces with you, with both of you today, like what I really want to do is I want to illuminate the audience with some valuable steps that they can take to stimulate their own consciousness, right? Because if they can awaken their own power and turn it on and know how to activate this high vibe feeling and frequency, it does have miraculous effects across their entire lives.
Yeah, it does. We're talking now. The latest statistics are out. Roni, we knew this though. The latest statistics are out. They're showing a growth point factor from a $5.6 trillion revenue market in 2022 to basically 8 trillion. 8 trillion moving up in the next 3 to 4 years. Now that's going to be on the low ball. So the question is, why, Elisa? Why?
Well, you know, we could be here for hours talking about the why, but, you know, I do think that people are becoming more educated. They aren't just, you know, listening to whatever they're being told, whether it's in commercials or mainstream television. You know, they want to find out the answer themselves. And they're starting to realize that, unfortunately, much of what we've been told through the years is not really in our best interest, health wise, mental health, physical health. We really need to look and go back to a lot of what our grandparents did 100 years ago. Like Dr. Roni talks about juicing, and these are like God's foods that we need to nourish our bodies. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Roni, what do you think, just very simplistically, what would you say is the number one step in activating inner power? Like, is it the way we think, how we treat and honor our bodies, or something else, or a combination?
It's definitely the way we think. That's why I'm trying to empower so many millions of people, that a lot of things that are going on in our life every single day is a feeling, and we act on that feeling. Then we go and we look at something that sort of tells us something that's not true, but we don't know it's not true. And I tell people, if you feel that you are under stress because of a thing that just happened, that's just your feeling. You can change that feeling. And I try to teach people that cortisol and adrenaline and all of these hormones that we make ourselves inside of our body can kill us. And so we have to first start with how we feel in order to pursue how we're going to treat our body. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is action, and to know that we live in a difficult world today, because we got so much in our face, but we got so many bad things in our face. And we're trying to understand which one of the things do we believe? Do we eat this, that, or this? Or are they telling me that, that with this chronic disease that I have to take all these medications, but all these medications are literally hurting my liver and my kidneys and my pancreas. So there's a lot going on, but I'm trying to empower people first. The first step is to be conscious and be aware, but also stop all of those feelings that are not necessary in order to pursue this wellness journey that we have to have, this longevity journey. We're never going to get there if we're going to sit back and take in what I call the mess, the chaos that's out there. There's a lot of chaos out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, at a little story. I go with my mom every Sunday to her golf club, and she's in her late 70s. A lot of her friends are in their late 70s and 80s. And the first thing, like, you go, "Hi, how you doing?" And the first thing is like, "Oh, I just went to the doctor, and I have this problem and I have that problem, and I got to go for this test and that test." And I want to like shake them and just be like, you have to change your mindset. You have to start thinking that you're well. You're buying into this whole hype. So
Right.
tell us about your center, because I want my audience to understand what you have done to offer a place where people can go, and tell us a little bit about some of these really cutting edge technologies that you're using.
Yeah, Roni, I mean, bottom line for you too is to really talk about the birth of the center, being born out of one of the largest pandemic in the world, really, but being born out of a no solution medical, right? I mean, that, we've moved beyond that in a sense, but the birth of something like this comes from the mystery of the mystery disease, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You said it right on the nail. And I've always been, I've always was a very innovative, kind of creative naturopath, called a traditional naturopath. I mean, we go back to roots, when they used to laugh at us, right? The root doctor and, voodoo and all of that. But, basically if I have to go back 40 years, I was always like into like ozone treatments when people didn't know what that was, hyperbaric oxygen chamber where people thought that was crazy, stem cell therapy. So I've always come from that era. And here we are today, because back then they laughed at you, they thought you were crazy. But today they're not only asking you what it is, but they're now asking you, when can I do it? So we've come a very long way. So my center that started from like 40 years, I can't even believe that I'm saying that. But I am, because I've been here 40 years and I go by how old my kids are. That's the only way I can remember. But I'm still doing ozone treatments and oxygen treatments, and and people fly in and do stem cells. But, I take care of those type of people, but I'm now trying to figure out how to change the world, because we all need that. We all need to know that sauna, infrared therapy is great for detoxification. And these are things that I do here that don't cost money. I don't want people to think that you have to have a lot of money to come see me. That's not true. It's, again, what they feel, but it's not a true feeling. I mean, there's things like people think that it's just not colonics, but there's ways that you can cleanse your colon. There's ways you can cleanse your kidneys and your liver without taking on some of those more expensive ways. And that is really truly going back to roots, because back then, my grandmother died at 100 years old. She would never open up a can, a bag, or a bottle. And these are things that were so basic. You didn't have to have a degree to understand that. You didn't have to have a degree to understand that you can go in your backyard and grow some of the most powerful herbs on earth. You can do it yourself. But they make us believe and think that this is difficult, or that we shouldn't do it, or there's something dangerous about it. There's nothing dangerous about natural herbs and vegetables that come straight out of the garden that have not been sprayed. There's nothing so wrong. What's so wrong with that? But they've took our brains and our minds, and they made us think that the only way to do it is a prescription medication. Well, I have to tell you, my aunts and uncles who lived to be in their hundreds, they couldn't even afford to go to the doctors. They were their own self-care advocates. They were their own doctors. And most of it started in that backyard. So I know that with all of the innovative treatments, I was treating somebody the other day on the Rife machine. I mean, that goes way back. We're talking about frequency medicine. Of course, we're going to have like photobiomodulation machines, and we're going to have Rife machines, because we have to cater to the type of people that need that. But we can also teach people that don't need that. I can teach frequency medicine without that. So I think, to go back to your original question, it's the mindset. It's how we think and feel. That starts off the success of what we call longevity.
Yeah. In my own coaching practice, I coach people that are going through life transitions. Divorce is a very big area that I work with people, and sometimes people think very like cerebral, like I need the information, what do I have to worry about? And it's like, well, we're going to take a look also at you holistically, because you're like a whole person, and we have to also help you with your mindset and make sure you're taking care of your body, because you can't deal with this kind of stress if you're not. And so let's say I want to come to or one of our listeners wants to come to your center in Martha's Vineyard. Like, walk me through, like, what's the experience? What do you do? How do you do an intake? How do they experience it?
Well, it's been so many years of us doing this. We now changed a little bit from our traditional way. Our traditional way was more serious, right? But today we have fun. And I got this from one of my therapists. We make wellness fun. And the first thing you start with is an assessment, of course, and it's a 9-page assessment form, because we have to get to know who you are. And then from that assessment form, I would say 75% of people will need integrative blood work with me and my medical team. And we will do that blood work because most of the time is that we have to teach you who you are. A lot of people don't even know who they are. I'll tell them, I'll say, oh, do you know you've got a high CRPS? And do you know that, some of these tests that we hear? No, absolutely. No one's ever told me that. And we'll find out that they've had these elevated inflammatory markers for many, many years. So when we teach them who they are, then when they come here, they have a program just for them. Everyone's an individual. Everyone's customized. That's why I specialize in 21 chronic illness. People think I specialize in 21 detox dieters, right? But that's just one thing. Detox is one of my favorite things to do. You know that, right? Yeah. But I do specialize in 21 chronic illness. Lyme disease being one of my most passionate. Cancer is another passionate of mine. Kidney and liver disease is passionate. So I'm passionate about all of these chronic illnesses, because as a registered nurse, I was an allopathic nurse for many, many years in ICUs and CCUs. And when I decided to go back to school to become a naturopath, it was because I didn't see people getting well back then. I saw people living with their chronic illness, and I saw them not living a holistic life, and they definitely was not living a good life, because chronic illness creates such pain in the body and creates such a magnitude of things to do by taking all of those prescription drugs. You got to remember there's a lot of side effects. So now you have to live with those side effects. And then you get another drug to correct those side effects, and then another drug to correct those. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I left that field, or I left that type of medicine to go into whole body, holistic, alternative, all the different names that they have for it today. That's what I do. So when you come to the retreat, I just trying to give you an overview of what it's like. I may have 5 or 6 different chronic illness all in one center, and each one of them will have a specific protocol just for them. So my therapist will walk them through their day, which is called a window schedule. And that window schedule for one person may be going down to the center to have a hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And then client number 2, her therapy for the day may be going to have a lymphatic drainage massage. And the person number 3, that person may be staying right here and working with me with Rife machines and ozone treatments. And so when you take all of the entire group, they'll come back together at night, and then we'll sit down and we'll have fun. And that's talking about them and talking about their day and talking about their next steps. But one of the things I always let everybody know as soon as they walk through the door, it's not about what you're doing here today and now. Is about everything that you learn, because you got to take everything and you got to go back to your space in your home, but you're going to learn everything in my home, which we call the retreat. And I think that's the magic of the retreat, actually, is that they can actually see what we do here and sort of like learn each and every modality. And even though they can't purchase some of them, guess what? There's a lot of things you can do that sort of like is similar to it, like a rebounder that don't cost a lot of money. That's a vascular cleanse, right? Or like a infrared sauna, which detoxes you. And I know that we can't make everyone buy a hyperbaric chamber, but there's a lot of things that you can do to help oxygen get into your vascular system. So that's the whole thing. And when I say make it fun, I think at night when we sit around the fireplace, if it's the winter, or we sit around the air conditioner at night when we talk and we get to know each other on an intimate level, then you can go home and remember everything that you did at the retreat.
That just sounds so amazing. And, you know, I'm thinking as you're saying this, like Dr. Pat, we've been talking about the wellness wheel, right? And all these different aspects of our lives, but it really does start with, like you said, Dr. Roni, having the right mindset and making sure this container that we live in while we're on this earth is optimized as best as we can. I remember when my father was diagnosed with cancer, I asked him about, you know, having going into a hyperbaric oxygen, and the radiologist, you know, of course, I wasn't as enlightened at the time. Not that I believed him, but he said, "Oh no, that can actually have bad effects." And I'm thinking to myself, how could oxygen have, you know, but I was fighting a system at that point, and I wasn't as enlightened myself to put up a big fight. But it's I guess what we could probably all agree on is that when everybody's well, it's the big corporations and big pharma are not making money. So, you know, it's not in their interest to really get us well. It's more in their interest to keep us sick and taking more and more pills. And that's kind of what we are all, you know, trying to butt up against, to educate people to take a different path on this. And it starts with mindset.
You know, let's talk about why Lyme disease just for a minute. So it's the great imposter. There's so little we know, and there's not enough time in this show. But here's what Roni and I have witnessed. We've witnessed doctors be put out of business for this because they discovered something incredible. Study done by a doctor, remember this, Roni? In his basement, he got 11 Harvard brains of people that passed away from Alzheimer's. And he got them in. He cut them open because you can't do this with live people, just saying. But he cut open the 11 brains, and 8 out of the 11 did not have Alzheimer's. They had the biofilm of Lyme.
Yes.
So the reason it started kind of and evolved is because when you are able to cure people, and I use that word very carefully, Roni, When you're able to stop a Lyme patient from dying, you have peeled back the onion. And so what you hear both of us talk about is the discovery of wellness. Now, let me just drop this in. COVID-19 was a nightmare. However, when I watched a medical doctor who is a host of this show bring in ozone machines, you know you have broken through. Why? Because all of the treatments Roni's talking about were brought forth in the pandemic before there was a solution. Do you know what I'm saying? Before we had a prescription, before. And you started to see the Dr. Ronnies and the Dr. Darvish use everything they already knew.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting about wellness. But Ronnie's right. If you don't think that you can be well, or you don't think that looking at some of the things that your mama did or your grandmama did, you're not going to be able to get them to get off the needle. You're not going to be able to move the dial.
Yeah, it really does, the more we can educate ourselves, right, being a little older. I know that from the time my kids are 17 and 20 now, it's been like banged into them, so when they have a muscle ache or a backache, they reach for the arnica cream, and they put it on, and they look at labels and they read things, and they know that if it has this ingredient, they shouldn't. But so it hopefully we can start to educate our children too through this process, and the young people to we've kind of come full circle, right, from 100 years ago when people were doing this, and then they were called quacks for doing things that cured people for 5,000, 10,000 years. So I think that, and I'm just thinking like so much of mindset has to do with being open. And we're kind of brainwashed into a lot of thinking about, going through things like you said, Dr. Roni, like we have this allopathic view of that you pop a pill, that's how you cure anything. But every single day, more and more, I think people are just posting. I mean, you look at TikTok. I watch so many they just come up on all my feeds, these TikToks of just little bits of information, little things you can do each day, foods you can eat, ingredients you can use, spices you can have. And like you said, most of it can just be grown in our own backyards, right?
Well, and don't forget, we've had some shifts. For example, this is not a pitch for legalizing marijuana. That's not what I'm about to talk about. But the fact that the constraints around THC and marijuana have been lifted open up the door for medical treatments for people, right, Roni? I mean, you had to go to the black market to get anything, but now there's just more available to us. The question, though, remains, really, for people, how do we make them more aware that these options are available? And that's your passion, isn't it, Roni? Dr.
And
Roni?
that's my passion. And I know that that's why I was created to do this. And I really believe that I was created to do this, and I will never stop. And they tried to stop me. Don't think they haven't. Okay. They have, but I'm really smart because I look at those who didn't make it because they didn't do it the way I'm doing it. And so I know that we're living in a crisis, and 70% of the people are going to die with one of the 5 highs. I do know that over the age of 55. That's not what I think longevity should be. We should not get to 55 and just die. Okay, we should have a good life after that. But it is created that that's what's supposed to happen to us. And if we don't change quickly and go back to what we call back to basics, back to the way my grandmother did it, we are not going to make it. And that's the truth, because I look at the statistics every day. I not only talk to doctors, I talk to, what do you call the people that put you under? Okay. Since we've been through that COVID, I know what's going on in our vascular system. I talk to scientists. And I think that there's so much information that's leading us down the wrong road. Even in the midst of all the great information, the confusion is there. So the real question is, how do we get people to understand it's this and not that? And that this is never going to hurt you, because that was the first law that we learn going to naturopathic school is do no harm.
Yeah. I think, to answer your question, I think we're doing it. I think it shows like this. I think it's getting the word out. I think it's, expanding, posting, spreading, being a kind of a digital warrior with all this great information and just letting it spread and share. And I think we're on the right path. I really have a lot of positive feeling that, people like you, Dr. Roni, Dr. Pat, myself, everybody does their share. And I think when we look back, this is my own personal belief, we look back in 5 or 10 years, I think we're going to see a very different landscape and a different sense of people having a sovereign view of how to take care of themselves. Well, it looks like we're out of time. It went so fast. I wish we had more time here, and I would love to talk further with you, Dr. Roni, and see if we could get you back on here for another episode and maybe dive in a little deeper into some of these things. Next time, we are going to be jumping into the secrets of high vibe financial wellness, and we're going to take a look at that with some special guests. Again, ladies, thank you so much for sharing this time with me.
Thank you.
And for being here, and for all you do for everyone. And to my audience, just remember the way to high vibe is to live in the vibration of love, abundance, and gratitude. Until next time, have a high vibrational day.
Beautiful.
You've been listening to the High Vibe Show, living the high vibe life. I'm your host, Elisa V, the Queen of High Vibe. Join us every first and third Monday of the month at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. This is the place to come for you to have loads of fun, frequency upgrades now, and have great guests to hear all about raising your frequency. For more information, visit hittingtherestartbutton.com. See you next time.